Hey, what's up, everybody? We are stepping away from horror movies for a little bit. Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. That's right, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 is one of my favorite movies of all time. Not only that, I believe this is the greatest comic book movie adaptation of all time. And if I cannot convince you that, because I know there's a lot of comic book fans out there and there's a lot of great comic book movies, if I can't convince you that, hopefully I can at least convince you that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 is fucking awesome. So, I got 10 reasons why I think this movie is awesome. We're going to dive right into that. But first, do me a favor, comment down below a couple things. I assume if you're watching this, you are a fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Tell me down below, who's your favorite turtle and why? And also, do you agree with me that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 is the greatest comic book movie of all time? I want to debate with you guys. Come on, let's do it. All right, let's get right into it. My number one reason why this movie is awesome is the effects and the turtle design. You cannot have a movie, a live action movie, involving the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and not have it believable that these are actually, mutant turtles, living in the city. And so what do? In the year 1990, you bring in the creator of the Muppets. That's right, Jim Henson and his team helped create the turtle designs. And they did a fucking spectacular job. You really believe that these are, overgrown turtles that walk and talk and do karate and shit. You believe that, and it's because of the practical effects and the creature designs of these turtles. Are there moments in this movie and the subsequent sequels that you don't believe that? Yes. There's a moment specifically in this movie where Donatello's laughing and he's got his mouth wide open. You can see a person in there, kind of creepy. But other than just a couple small moments like that, these turtles are extremely believable, and that is the number one thing they needed in this movie to set themselves up for success. So that's my number one. Number two is going to be the character introductions. Let's start with the turtles themselves. We don't see them right away. When they are first introduced to us, April is being attacked, and by the Foot Clan, of course, and she's been attacked. And what do the turtles do? We haven't seen them yet. They're in the background in the darkness, and Raphael takes his little scythe and smashes out the light. So they're covered in darkness. And then we start to follow them down the sewer, and then we're finally introduced to them, and they're starting to, have their turtle personalities, which we'll get into. But the introduction of the turtles is great. But the introduction of another character is even better than the turtles, and I'm talking about the villain of this movie, the Shredder. My God, his introduction is just fucking brilliant, and it's the stuff of nightmares. He is literally introduced walking down a hallway, and you just see this, I'm telling you, it is like an 80-foot long shadow in front of him as he slowly walks out from the darkness. Or, I think he's kind of coming from the light into the darkness, and we just see it from above. And then it slowly pans to him, and he has this great speech to the Foot Clan members. What an intro. And that's about, that's well into the movie when we're introduced to him. It's just fucking fantastic. Then you get the intro of Casey Jones, who literally is gonna beat the fuck out of some thieves. Literally put him in the hospital. He's taking his hockey stick, his goalie stick, and he's beating the shit out of these guys. It's fucking awesome. And then, of course, April, we're introduced to her where she is investigating this crime ring rampant throughout the city. And you see right away that she's an investigative journalist. She's comparing it to a crime ring that happened in Japan a number of years ago. Obviously, it's the same, so she deduced that before the police did. So we're introduced to all these aspects of these characters, within our first, few minutes of screen time of these characters, and that is just an excellent job. It would have been so easy to start out with, just showing the turtles in the sewer right in their face, especially with these great creature designs like I talked about, but they held back and they told us what we needed to know as an audience for all these characters. So that's my number two. My number three is going to be the simplistic story. You get a fantastical setup like this, these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles living and doing karate and all kinds of shit. And you would assume that there'd be some fantastical story, like they'd be battling Crane or something crazy, right? No, this story is so simple. It starts out with, like I said, April is investigating these crimes in New York, and what happens? The turtles show up, and they save April. And then they have to bring April down to their lair. And then, April's introduced to them, the first human interaction. She's getting along with them. And then the turtles, we get to the crux of the story. Splinter is taken by the Foot Clan. And we're going to get into some of the emotional beats of that. But Splinter is taken, and the turtles need to try to save him. And, they go back to April's apartment. April helps them. April's apartment gets destroyed. They have to go to April's cottage or whatever. Raph is injured. And the whole time, this Foot Clan is just, stealing and causing all this crime in the city until the final confrontation. It's so simple. You got the good guys and the bad guys, and there's some stakes involved, but it's really simple. There's no mutant aliens coming from outer space or anything like that. There's no superpowers, except for, the fact that turtles are grown and humanoids, kind of, and they know, and they were taught ninja powers by their rat master. But other than that, the story is super simple, and that's why it works on many, many levels. Number 4, it's going to be the humans in this, specifically April and Casey. And I'm not talking about their flirtatious relationship. That is good because, it kind of, it's kind of something for us as humans to glom onto. But their interactions with the turtles are great. They meet them. Once they get over the initial disbelief, they accept the turtles for who they are. Even Casey, who has this great, banter and battle with Raphael at the beginning of the movie where they're fighting. After that, he realizes these turtles are on the good side. So April and Casey, they feel like real characters in this movie, and that helps us as humans kind of latch on to the story from their perspective. So the humans are number 4. Number 5 is going to be Shredder and the Foot Clan. So you got Shredder, and Splinter basically goes into the whole backstory. He's got a history with Shredder. Shredder killed his master, and so there's all this kind of backstory there. But Shredder and his lieutenant in charge are recruiting all these kids. Okay, they are recruiting all these kids to go in the sewer. Okay, and there's parallels to that, which we're going to talk about shortly. But they're recruiting all these kids. But just the intro of Shredder, like I said, they're causing rampant crime all throughout New York City. Absolutely incredible. And you feel that Shredder is really evil in this movie. And he's got all these, these kids essentially doing his bidding. You believe that he's a master of karate based on Splinter's backstory, based on the fight on the rooftop. He is a great villain in this story, and I'm glad they went with him and did it in a realistic approach instead of something fantastical, like I said, with the Crane or, Bebop and Rocksteady, and all kinds of shit like that. It is believable in this movie, and it helps from a realism aspect, like I said. Number 6 is going to be the score to this movie. The score to this movie is fucking incredible. Whether it's the fight sequences, which there's one of the score names is like Tatsu Attacks, when they're battling in April's apartment before it gets burned down. It's incredible, and it really, it really kind of livens up certain scenes, and it just makes it feel like there's some stakes involved in this movie. So the score throughout this movie, whether it's the fighting sequences, whether it's the more serious sequences, whether it's the goofy sequences, the score is excellent. Okay, number 7, serious tone and adult themes. That's right, a movie about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a very adult movie. Like, watch this movie compared to some of the sequels, and the sequels are not using their weapons. In this movie, they are using their fucking weapons. This is real stakes involved, and this has very adult themes to this movie. This movie is essentially about, and I'm going to get into this, children losing their father and trying to get him back. That's some serious shit right there. There's a great scene with Raphael and Splinter, which we're going to talk about, and there's just so many different parts of this movie that it's an adult movie. I like this movie now more than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I loved this movie, but I actually loved part two a little better. It's more fun, more goofy. But now watching those two again, like I still like part two, but this is my movie. This movie is great. It's very adult, using children's, basically children's characters to tell adult themes, and it's something that happened a lot in old Disney movies and things like that, and you see it a lot now in like maybe Pixar movies where they're using adult emotions and adult themes in children's characters, which is great. And then the serious tone. This movie is played straight. Okay. Yes, the turtles are cracking jokes. Yes, the turtles are eating pizza. Yes, they're saying cowabunga and awesome and shit like that. But they play this movie straight. The stakes involved in this movie are real. You think people may die in this movie. And that really helps you as an audience stay invested in the story. So I really like that they played it straight, and there's all kinds of adult themes. Number 8 is going to be the parallels between the Ninja Turtles and the Foot Clan members. And essentially, these are two groups of people that are very similar. They are outcast from society. Whether you're the Turtles, who are mutant turtles and will never get to experience society, they're going to be outcasts, obviously. And then the Foot Clan is taking teens and creating teens that are like estranged from their parents and runaways and all kinds of shit, and they are turning them into an army. And you have these parallels between the Turtles and the Foot Clan. They are not so different. The difference is the Turtles are taught by Splinter, and the Foot Clan is taught by a psychopath, Shredder. So therein lies the difference. But when you look at the parallels kind of between the two groups, emotionally and being outcast, Shredder even says, "You're here because the outside world rejects you," right? Same with the Turtles. The outside world would reject them. So the parallels between the Foot Clan and the Turtles are really deep on an emotional level. Number 9 is going to be the set pieces of this movie. From everything from New York City. New York City is like a character in this movie. Okay, it feels like you're in New York City. And then you have the Foot Clan hideout, which is probably the coolest set piece of this movie. Like I said, you got all these teens that are runaways and outcasts and things like that. And you go to the Foot Clan hideout, and there's kids skateboarding, there's arcade games, early 90s, remember? Arcade games, smoking cigarettes, gambling, all kinds of shit that you could ever imagine. It's fucking cool. And then in the back, you got them fighting and learning how to fight, learning the ninja skills from Shredder and his number one lieutenant. I can't remember his name, but that is an awesome set piece. The sewers look amazing in this. The Turtles' hideout looks amazing. April's cottage is great when they're kind of recovering and trying to find their way back to, they think Splinter might be dead. All kinds of shit like that. Everything feels lived in. It's gritty. It's fucking great. There's no CG bullshit, and I know CG has a place in things, but it's nice to watch a movie that doesn't have, computer graphics everywhere. Everything feels like it's lived in. Kind of reminds me of Star Wars in that aspect, the original trilogy. Not everything's not shiny or anything like that. It's dirty and grimy, and it looks like it's been lived in, like I said. But number 10, the most important reason this movie is awesome and it works for me, and the reason I think it's the best comic book movie adaptation ever, is the Turtles' individual emotional journeys. The most obvious aspect of this is Raphael. We all know Raphael is a hothead, right? Absolutely. There is a scene at the beginning of this movie when Raphael leaves to blow off some steam and Splinter's waiting for him. It's a fucking touching scene. A touching scene. He's basically saying, you have this anger in you, and I've tried to curb it. You're not like your brothers. You choose to face this alone, but you cannot forget what I've taught you. I'm always here, my son. Raphael's crying. That is some deep fucking emotional shit right there. And then you got Mikey and Donatello, who, after Splinter is telling them, he's preparing them for the fact that he won't be all around all the time. He's saying, I'm not always going to be here for you guys, right? And then Mikey and Donatello are waiting for a pizza. Okay? That's the Turtles after all, right? They're waiting for a pizza. And Donatello says, you ever think about what Splinter said? That he's not going to be around all the time? And Mikey ignores it. He goes, Pizza Man's got 2 minutes. Like, look at that. Donatello is worried, he wants to talk about it. Michelangelo, who's kind of the emotionally youngest of the group, chooses to ignore it. And then what happens when Splinter's taken? They go to April's house, and they just look devastated, and just like, Splinter, like, he's devastated. He never thought it would happen, even though Splinter was trying to prepare him for it. And then obviously you got Leo, the leader. He goes through a lot of emotions in this movie. Especially after him and Raphael have this, blowout where they're screaming at each other, and then Raphael gets brutally injured, and he's essentially, for all intents and purposes, in a coma, and you got Leo just sitting there in April's cottage, in the room with Raphael when he's laying in the bathtub. Leo's just sitting there, refusing to leave. He is the leader. He feels like he let Raphael down. And then, when they're battling Shredder at the end, Leo says, I only think one thing. This guy knows where Shredder is. He's the leader of the group, and he goes through this journey as the leader. And there's a reason he has the swords, because he is probably the most responsible one of the turtles, and the swords are the ones that are the weapons that can use the most or do the most damage. So just the emotional journey of that. Like I said, this movie at its core is essentially about a group of children, teenagers, coping with the fact that they lost their father figure. And that is such an has an emotional impact on you as the viewer, and they do such a good job with that. Like I said, this is a movie about fighting Ninja Turtles, right? Who eat pizza, do all kinds of crazy shit. But there are so many serious aspects to this movie that I just think it's underrated. I know it's starting to get more love now as the years go past. We're more than 30 years since this movie came out. We got another Turtles movie coming out later this year. I'm going to see it, but it ain't going to be like this. It just isn't. And I'm not trying to be this old get off my lawn guy. Things were better back in the day, because that's not always the case at all. But as far as movies like this go, as far as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles go, I don't think this movie will ever be topped. I hope I'm wrong, because that means we'd get an amazing fucking movie. But in my eyes, because of the reasons I stated, and because this movie's kind of grounded in reality and hits all the emotional beats for you as a viewer, and you see the Turtles and the human characters and Splinter go through all this, there's other aspects too, but because you see all them go through all this, it really just hits you on an emotional level. And like I said, there's swearing in this movie too. Raphael just screaming "damn." So many memorable scenes, so many one-liners. It is a fun movie that you might not even realize the themes that I'm talking about, and that some of the other stuff that I haven't even talked about. You might not even realize what this movie is, the story this movie is telling, until you actually start thinking about it. And that's what I think makes a great movie. And that's what I think makes a great comic book movie. The comic book movies are always fantastical, right? Whether it's Spider-Man, having these superpowers, whether it's Batman, being a millionaire, billionaire who fights crime at night. There's certain emotional beats each of these characters have. And the Turtles are no different than some of these other superheroes and some of these origin stories we've seen now throughout the years as comic book movies have exploded on the scene. You might not agree with me that this is the best comic book movie of all time. That's okay, because like I said, there are a lot of great comic book movies out there. And for me, I'm not going to lie, I got a lot of nostalgia with this movie. Nostalgia is a fun thing. It's a tricky thing to kind of grasp emotionally, though. So, yes, I'm jaded by my nostalgia, but even upon rewatches of this movie, I still think it's fucking amazing. I think it's the greatest comic book movie of all time. Tell me down in the comments, guys, are you a fan of this movie? And who is your favorite turtle? Mine is Donatello. See you guys next time.